What's interesting is that when I started podcasting, oh gosh, podcasting was new. It was like it was barely 13 years old. I mean, so it
Yeah.
was barely a teenage boy. And then everybody with $65 and a microphone just started like popping up in these spaces, and
Yes.
the it became really saturated, and in some instances oversaturated. And I think that in those moments, it might be very easy to say kind of like, okay, this is kind of done, this is kind of
Mhm.
washed. But for you to continue to like stay in it is really valuable, because it's one thing to have a microphone, it's something else to have something to say. And
Mhm.
that is
Mm,
what you have found with a lot of
yeah.
people. They have popped up with hot takes and
Mm.
opinions,
Mhm.
but they don't have anything
Mhm.
to say. And
Nothing
Mhm.
to
so
say. Regurgitating.
no nuance, no depth,
Mhm.
no research, no data, just,
Mhm.
entertainment. And that cycle is actually kind of fizzling its way out,
Yeah.
and what remains is actually what we talked about earlier, is the people who actually have some substance, the people who want to shift away from that kind of microwavable, uh,
Mm.
easily consumable content, and just kind of want to take a moment and start to like really wrestle with the issues of the day. And so I just want
Yeah.
to tip my hat to you for continuing to stay in that space.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you. Thank you. We're in it together, girl. Because I remember, wasn't it podcast movement way back? Like, and that was the early days.
The early,
Mm.
early, early
The
aughts,
early days.
before podcast movement became podcast movement, they were actually doing meetups, child. They were doing meetups
Yes.
in various cities, and that's how I became connected with them. Like, so
Yeah.
before podcast movement became the conglomerate that it is, I was there when they were building this at the ground level. And yeah, it was still a very new thing. It was a very white and very male. And
Mm.
so our voices were very much missing from the discourse. And back in those days, you did it for, it was a labor of love. Okay. The
Mm.
podcasting back,
Literally, when you say labor,
labor. Okay. It was not something that you
labor.
did to get paid. It was not something that you did with your eye on sponsorship. Now it's a different
Yeah.
game. But
Yeah.
back in those days, you really had to be committed to the cause and
Mm.
committed to your content. And I am grateful for that experience, because it really has sharpened the knife of exactly what you said. My superpower is consistency. I
Mm.
have continued to swing the axe. And even when there were pivots, because that's also a scary place. Sometimes people are afraid to pivot. They be like, oh, people know me as this one thing. But I'm also
Mhm.
a fan of just honest conversations and just saying, hey, this is where I am. This is the season of life that I'm in. And I am at a place where I have given I've completed this course. And so I'm starting a new course. And if you would like to come with me, this is what we're going to be doing. And if not, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate your time. And, you could have been anywhere in the world. So thank you for that. Right. And then you just kind of move on. And a lot of people have kind of fizzled out because they're like, I don't know how to pivot, or I don't want people to think, or I don't want people to feel. And I'm like, these are not things you can control, darling. You can control
Mm.
your journey. And so you move forward, and the people that are supposed to move with you will move with you.
Right. And sometimes it's not even a pivot, but an evolution.
Yeah.
Don't make me bring out the pink tambourine. Did you
I
know
mean,
I have a pink
please.
tambourine on my desk?
It's just an evolution. It's not even doing something like
That's
really
so
that
funny.
different. It's just
Yeah.
like I'm expanding, I'm evolving, you know? And
Mhm.
this is the next evolution of me.
Yes, yes. I love
Oh,
that about women. We tend to be, especially Black women, we tend to be very aware of when
Mm.
we are evolving, when we are Black women. And I mean this, I don't even mean this from like a deeply religious sense, but Black women are very biblical in the sense that when they say to everything there is a season, Black women are very attuned to the season. Okay.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, it's time for me to put away these things. And it's time for me to
Mm-hmm.
and different. And it is such an intuitive and deep knowing.
Yep.
Almost like with a job. It's like you at that job and you like, yep,
Mm-hmm.
it's about that time. We're gonna be rounding the corner. And she starts making her exit strategy and moving in that sort of thing. And Black women are
So
also
true.
very intuitive in terms of we can we can see the bad moon rising. You know
I
what
was
really
just gonna say,
surprises me?
since the season coming,
Since the
turning.
season coming, and
Mhm.
when people say like listen to Black women, we're like, that's not hyperbole. That's not
Right.
okay, like that's not sound bites. That's not like a hashtag. It's like, no, okay, because
Yeah.
here's what surprised me about the election that was and wasn't, right? I have been in academia for a really long time. Do you know how hard it is to get 92% of anybody to do anything? To get
Ooh.
And
92% to
Ooh.
okay,
Ooh.
because Blackness is not a monolith. It absolutely is
Mm-mm.
not a monolith. And so it's not 92% of the educated Black women. It wasn't
right.
92% of the middle class Black. It was
Right.
from every walk of life, in every sphere and every chapter of breathing existence. Black
Yes.
women peeped the situation and said, I'm going this way without
Yeah.
conference or conversation. Yes, there was organization, so it wasn't like
Right.
completely organic, but even people who were not a part of those Win with Black women conversations and things like that,
Yeah.
intuitively trotted ourselves to the ballot box, and I said 92%.
That's right.
Yes.
If you went into a
Information.
information, you can't even go into a
Mm.
corporation right now and place a lunch order, still or sparkling water, and you're not gonna get 92%.
Right.
Ah, yeah.
So I'm so glad to be in that number and continuing to do this work in these types of spaces.
Mm-mm-mm.
Mm.
So let's jump in. Let's jump in. Y'all, we have a great, amazing guest today. You all are going to learn and you're going to laugh a little. Dr. Shanté Holley is a cultural scholar, writer, and trauma informed life coach exploring the intersection of emotional wellness, identity, and cultural critique. She holds a doctorate from National Louis University and coaching certification from the CAP Institute with peer reviewed research published in Power and Education. A Fulbright research finalist and Substack bestseller. Okay. Her writing reaches over 7,300 subscribers, and her content across Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Threads has drawn more than 500,000 followers and 10 million views. She's been featured in the EDU Ledger's 2026 Leading Women in Higher Education. Dr. Shanté has spoken and collaborated with organizations including the Immigrant Justice Corps, AARP Foundation, American Red Cross, SAMHSA, SAMHSA, and the Ad Council, and serves on the board of Belonging Through Art. Through her work, she helps people break cycles of dysfunction, rewrite their internal narratives, and reclaim their lives. My goodness. Welcome, Dr. Shanté.
I've been busy.
Yes, you have.
So
I
glad
have
to
been
have you.
busy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm always cringe to send my bio. I said, I really need to like cut this down to like, a couple of
Mm-mm.
words because my goodness, it's one of those things where you know how you carry water, chop wood. You are just so busy doing the work that
Mm,
sometimes when somebody puts that work in front of you, you're like, wow, okay.
mm.
That's a
Yeah,
lot, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the work and I'm grateful to be here on the show. Thank you for having me.
absolutely. It's impacted lives. I'm glad you didn't cut it down. Like all of those things. There's a different person that's going to hear something in that bio and connect with it, or it will resonate in a different way. So you don't want to cut it because that could be someone else's word they need to hear.
Well, maybe I need a soundtrack like Hove, like allow me to reintroduce myself, so
Right?
I can pop my collar,
Yes.
make it a little bit more entertaining. It's
There
like,
you
where's
go.
my theme music? Okay, I'm gonna work on that for next time.
I love it. I love it. And it's so interesting listening again. I've read your bio and, we've known each other for quite some time. What I heard as I was listening to Myra this time is how your life is an example for perhaps what it means to break generational patterns,
Mm,
being trauma informed, focusing on identity and these cultural conversations and impacting so many people and especially Black women. What role do you think this work that you've done and that you are continuing to do is playing in the overall healing of your lineage?
mm,
Ooh, ooh, that's a good question. You know, I'm gonna be honest with you. So I have a daughter. She's about to be a junior in college, and I remember when she was 2 weeks old. I said, "This is gonna be my last go round on this ride." Like I knew that I was gonna be one and done
mm,
because multiple. God bless the moms of multiples. Y'all that
mm.
got them twos and threes, them
Right?
threes and fours. I mean, y'all are the real MVPs. But I knew 2 weeks in that this was not going to be my ministry, and and it's not because she was doing anything. I mean, she was 2 weeks old, so we just patting and swaying. But I realized in that moment of maternity leave the gravity of the responsibility that so much of what this child would become would be a direct result of how I showed up and what she saw. Because so much of who I am is a direct result of what I saw. And in some cases, what I did not want to continue in my
Mhm.
life. And so I remember when I started at my college, we had an incoming president who was starting at the same time, and I gave some sort of presentation, and he was impressed, and he started asking around like, "Who is she? What does she do? What department does she teach in?" Long story short, he asked me to be on a task force, and so we continued to work together. And one day he pulled me to the side. He said, "Your talents are wasted in the classroom." He said, "What do you want to do? Because you could easily be a college president." And I could have been. And the reason I had no interest in that path is because more than being a college president, I wanted to be a good mother. And I knew that when I look back over my life at all of because baby,
Mm, mm.
the Lord has brought me a mighty long way. Okay, from who I was as a teenager. But when I think back of all the times and all the trouble I got into, the singular glaring variable was my mother was not around because she was working. Okay, she was
Ah,
trying to she can be in two places at one time. So that latchkey generation, I said, mm-mm, I need to be around, accessible, and available. And so I needed the flexibility that a faculty role would shape. And so when I think about all the work that I've done, I'm most proud of the fact that my daughter did not see a mother that was struggling in the ways that I saw my mother struggling. I'm grateful that my child sees a mother who has hobbies, who has passions, who goes after her dreams. And she's just like, wow,
mm,
mom, she is. And I did not have that.
mhm.
I did not have that. And it's not to say that my mother did not do well for herself. She did. But by the time I saw that, she was young. She was an 18-year-old mom. So I was kind of like grown and out the house and, kind of doing my own thing. But my daughter, she has a very different idea of what it is to be a whole woman and not be one stuck in survival mode and rooted in past hurts and traumas and what have you. And what I think that that says in the greater sphere of the work that I do is that I don't just talk about living this type of life. I show it.
Mhm.
I demonstrate it. And I think that so many Black women look at the work that I've done and the way that I live my life, and they're like, "Girl," and they consistently say, "You are living.
Mm.
You are living your life. You are squeezing all the toothpaste out the tube." And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely squeezing all the toothpaste out the tube." And then you think about so many women generations prior who didn't know they could,
Mm.
didn't know that that option was available, and who reached the end of life wishing that they had made different choices, wishing that they had known that different choices were available. And so sometimes you just need to see what somebody else is doing to recognize that that is a possibility for you. For somebody who didn't have a silver spoon, I'm from the south side of Chicago. I am very much from the hood. Okay. Very much from the hood, from someone, who doesn't have a ring on her finger, for somebody,
Mhm.
who really did get it out of the mud and has still been able to create a beautiful tapestry of life. And I think that seeing that in my work speaks volumes for women who, and the world, men also, who can benefit from that sort of example.
Goodness. Just so much, so much. So many things have come up, and just hearing you talk. And like I mentioned, listen to a lot of your work, and I'm always learning. I'm always learning, and I'm so inspired by your insatiable curiosity, by your what I see as this, yeah, like this trailblazing. You and Kailei were talking earlier about being in the early podcast phase. Like y'all started podcasting when podcasting wasn't a thing, right? Like it was
Baby, we've
early
been
on.
pimping since pimping been pimping.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
geez.
Oh, geez.
Right. And I'm new to this, and y'all have this consistency, this ability to see or be curious about something and not let fear get in the way, not let, oh, I don't see people that look like me in this space get in the way. Like your ability to go forth and see is inspirational. And I wonder, did you see that about yourself like at a young age? Is this something that kind of started young? Is this new? When did you see that developing in you, this ability to trailblaze and not be held back from, I might be the only, I might be the first?
Because I grew up observing the limitations of other people's fear.
Ugh.
And this is generational. So I want to walk gingerly through this because my mother, God rest her soul, she came to this earth and left without ever having a passport.
Mm.
And I remember the first solo trip that I took, which was to London, which is pretty, it's London. That's if you're gonna cut your teeth in international travel, London is pretty tame, okay? Like
Mhm.
they speak the language, it's pretty tame. And my family said, "Who you going with?" I said, "I'm going by myself." Child,
Mm,
you would have thought
I already hear it. I
I
hear
already
it.
know.
Oh.
they sent me every article snatched off the street, never to be seen.
Oh,
You gonna end up
gosh.
like that girl, I mean, and to be fair, that sort of fear and trepidation, to a degree and for a long time, actually kept Black people safe in this country. Like, hey,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
don't go certain places at night. Hey, you don't go in certain towns. Hey,
Yeah.
you don't. One of the reasons why, if anybody grew up with the kind of family where when y'all drove down south or drove out of state, y'all didn't leave in broad daylight, baby, you left at
Mm.
0 dark 30
Mm.
because you wanted as few people as possible to know that you had vacated the premises, and you were trying to bypass certain uh people on the road, so to speak. And my
Mhm.
grandmother, who never drove, but she never slept on a road trip, she said, I got to keep
Mm.
my eye out for Johnny Nab. That's what she called him, Johnny Nab, because she was keeping her eye out for the man. And so she was very fearful about what could happen to her family. And then my mother was also very fearful. And even though I recognize the root of that and how
Mhm.
it was genuinely coming from a place of care and concern, I also recognized the limitations of
Yeah.
that, because one of the things that makes me a good educator and a good researcher is I'm always in the back of my head, why speculate when you can know? Why speculate and wonder and build up all
Mhm.
the anxiety when the data is available? And so my curiosity drives me to the data. And so I
Mm.
recognized, I said, I can't live in the limitation of my parents' fear. I can't live in the limitations of my grandparents' fear. I am willing to trailblaze and sojourn. And after COVID, so we were talking about COVID before the show. After COVID, one of the first things I did once I got free from lockdown is I went and got my first tattoo on my forearm, which is a Latin translation of I live without fear. And fearlessness
Yes.
is not recklessness. There's a difference
Yes.
between that. But I cannot imagine getting to the end of life with the kind of regret that is rooted in I wish I had had the courage. I'm like, oh no.
Mm. Mm.
Courage and curiosity go hand in hand for me.
Brilliant.
Ooh, so good. So good. And even to have the
Mm.
recognition that
Mhm.
there are other ways,
Mhm.
and that you did live the life that you could live.
Yeah.
Because I would imagine that many of our ancestors didn't even know what was possible.
Yeah.
For them, they
Mhm.
lived a full life, not knowing that a fuller life was available.
Mm.
Not knowing
Mhm.
that it was available. And something that my mother did used to tell me, she said, well, nothing beats a failure but a try. That's another thing about me.
Mm.
Mhm.
In addition to being extremely consistent in the work that I do, one of my other superpowers is I am an introvert. And so what that means, and that can mean different things for different people, but what it means for me is that I am not swayed by the opinions of others. I'm like, "Oh no, who are you?"
Yes.
Oh, I never connected those together. I like that.
Like your read, your assessment of me, I'm like, "I don't have anything to do with that. What is that to me?"
That's
That's
It's
a
good.
dust.
superpower.
That
Yeah.
is a superpower. And so the thing is that I am not afraid to look badly at first. Like there are some people with a fixed mindset that will only go for the low hanging fruit, that will only go for the easy win, that will only go for the aesthetically pleasing. And I'm like, nah, let me get out here, because I'm like, this is how you learn. Every master was once a disaster. So let me go out here and do the
Mhm.
disastrous bit. Okay, let me go out here and fail.
Yeah.
Mm.
And failure is data.
Yep.
Failure is data. It's like,
Mhm.
as we like to say,
Mhm.
and what did we learn? There's a lot to be learned from failure. And
Right.
so I have no ego about going out there and looking bad, because other people's perceptions of what I'm doing or what I'm trying, I'm like, it has, what does that mean to me? Like, what bills does it pay in this house? And so because of that, it's easy for me to kind of go out and have that kind of courage without any real consideration for how it's going to play out in the media. Because one of the things that I learned about this maybe a good decade ago, and I cite it all the time, it was the work of a hospice nurse out of Australia who sat with people at the end of life, and it was kind of like the 5 regrets of dying people, and she published a book about it and the whole 9 yards. And do you know what the number one regret was? I wish I had had the courage to live the life that I wanted to live instead of the one that was expected of me. And I said, that
Mm.
won't be me.
Ha.
It won't be me.
Mm. Yes.
Oh.
The regret
Oh.
around what they didn't do versus what they did do. Yeah. Goodness. You
Yeah.
talked about this idea of facilitating fear versus debilitating fear. And that just shook my whole world because it helped me distinguish between the types of fears. And you touched on a little bit, like our ancestors had to protect themselves, right? And so they
Yeah.
were living out of this fear, but we've progressed past some of those things,
Hmm.
and some people are still living in that same fear that were our ancestors had to protect themselves. Like, tell us more about what the difference is between the facilitating fear and debilitating, and how it could limit us in our lives.
So, facilitating fear is one that spurs you forward. It is
Mm.
one that, when they say do it afraid, it's that type of fear. So, for
Mhm.
example, you could have the best voice in the world, the best singing voice in the world, and you've you've signed up for the audition, and they're about to call your name, and you have butterflies in your stomach, and you're nervous, but you know deep down that you can do it. Like, you
Yeah.
know what you have. And so
Mhm.
even though you have the nerves, the anxiety, and the fear, you step out and you do it anyway.
Yeah.
Debilitating fear is that fear that stops you in your tracks.
Mm.
Debilitating fear is one that routes you to a place that is beneath your potential. And some people are comfortable there. And far be
Mm.
it for me to tell you how to live your life. Far be it for me to tell you what your comfort zone should be. But at the same time, there are so many people who, like, case in point, I'll use solo travel. Now, I have, what's that Lisa Stanfield? Been around the world, and yeah.
Yeah.
Baby, I have been around the world. I, like, right before we got on this thing, I'm like, let me get my tickets to the Australian Open because I love my
Yes.
tennis. Okay.
Yes.
And again, it's like, who you going with? I'm like,
Me?
I just, me, myself, and I, like, I
And
am. Hello, I am a
Mm.
wonderful travel companion. I love going places by myself. Okay. And the thing is that I have so many friends that are like, "How are you doing that, Shanté? Like, aren't you afraid of getting lost? Aren't you afraid
Mm.
of, not knowing the language? Aren't you afraid?" Like, the thought of it for them
Mm.
is just overwhelming. But to me, that is its own prison. Like,
Mm.
a lot of
Yes.
times we become the architects of our own prison. Sometimes we break our own hearts. And
Mm.
I have a friend right now who, and I love her for doing the work. I love her for making the effort. She is in therapy right now. So there's a form of therapy called EMDR, which basically
Mm.
kind of takes your traumatizing experiences and it takes you through a process of facing them head on so that you can process all of the negative and hurtful emotions that you've associated with it so that you can arrive in a new and different place. She is
Mhm.
going through that process right now because she says, Shanté, I'm getting on that plane. She said, right now, I can't do more than 3 or 4 hours, but I'm going to face this because I can't stay trapped here. And
Yeah.
that's what debilitating fear is. It traps you at a certain level of possibility.
Mm.
And imagine having the capacity to be a multimillionaire, but because of fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of what somebody's going to say, you cap yourself at $89,000 a year. I can't, to me, that is my biggest fear. My biggest fear is mediocrity. I said,
Ooh.
Mm.
oh my, I,
Come on, somebody.
I can't. And
Wow.
it would be different if I didn't have the gifts that I have. And there have been times where I prayed for other gifts. When I tell you, there have been times, you see these hands,
Mm. Mm.
I these nicely manicured hands, do you know how often I have prayed that, please give me the skill to, like, beat face like a cut crease. Let me do the good sew in. Let me let,
Yes.
let me let me
Oh
learn
my
how to
God.
tile some grout.
Mm.
No, and it's not for lack of trying. It's just
Mm.
you. Mm-mm. Now, if you want me to strategize something with you, you want me to write something for you, you want me to create some sort of
Research and
strategic research,
mm.
I got you. You want me to do something that requires hands? I
Mm.
that
Mm.
because for a time, for a time I did, even though I could see the potential of the work that I was doing, I did not see the ready benefit, okay, like the tangible benefit. And like
Mhm.
I said, as a single mother, children are the most expensive thing on the planet. I don't care what anybody
Girl.
says. Like when you make that commitment to bring these children into this world, children are expensive, okay?
Mm,
And so there were many a time where I was like, I wish I just had that kind of handy skill and trait where I could do something real quick and boom, a quick $100, a quick $300, a quick whatever, whatever. But that wasn't my skill set. And
mm,
so I had to use what I had. And so I just can't imagine
mm,
having the skills that I have and capping myself at a place where, to give you an example, my mother came from the school of thought that you go to school, you get you a good job with benefits, and you ride that gravy train to glory. Okay,
that's
like
it.
that's a good life.
Mhm.
Get yourself a family, and that's it. Okay, and to be clear, there is nothing wrong with that life. That actually
Right.
is a solid life. Now, granted, in this economy, it won't get you as far as it got you back in the 90s, but from that perspective, it was a good life. When I started doing things like podcasting and writing books and hosting retreats and events,
Mm,
she could it was a struggle for her to get there. She's like, "What are you
Mm.
doing? Why are you doing this extra stuff? Like you don't
Mm.
you've done the thing. You've hit the zenith. You
yeah.
What are you doing?" And she didn't understand it. She did not understand that I had a calling on my life that was above and beyond get a good job with benefits and ride the gravy train to glory. And so that was what she did, and she was very happy in that, and I love that for her. But that wasn't my road, and it was difficult for her to understand my road, but I knew it. I knew it intuitively. And when we talk about fear, that's one of the biggest things. People that knew you from when you had ashy knees are not always going to be your biggest supporters. And people are not prepared for that.
It.
People are not prepared
Mhm.
for that. When I think about, I've had clients that said, wow, neither one of my parents bought my book. Neither one of my parents came
Oh,
to the
Mm.
book launch or what have you. And I was like, because for them, you have a certain role, and it is hard for them to see you beyond that role. But the
mm,
good news is you saw it
mm.
and you did it. And the people that were supposed to hear you, the people that were supposed to read you, the people that were supposed to receive the gifts that you had to offer did. You answered the call, and there's value in that.
Yes. Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. I've had conversations with my father as well, where he'll say things like, "Oh, I could totally see, my husband being a partner at a top 5 consulting firm. He's so brilliant. And I could see you doing X, Y, and Z. He wanted me to be an engineer or, these visions that he had for me that included the linear path of you do well and get promoted and get the big job and the big house and all of the things. And what I shared with him once was, Dad, you and Mom sacrificed so much and you were trailblazers. They were both in white collar jobs in the 70s and 80s at a time when Black people were not. That when
Mm,
they were married, they had a two-story, they talk about this two-story colonial house with 3 or 4 bedrooms and 2 cars, which was not
mm,
they were the only ones in their friend group
That was not
like
done.
that.
It was
That
mm-mm,
was
not
not
done.
done in
mm-mm.
1970, fill in the blank, right?
No.
So I said, you all made those sacrifices and blazed a trail. So now I and we can live a life that is aligned with the calling. We don't have to do the linear path because of what you did. And I'm so grateful that
Yeah.
you lay that foundation. And I'm also very grateful that I can live my life in a way that's in aligning with the calling that is on my life.
Mm,
Let me tell you, that is such a beautiful testimony, and it's part of that generational dynamic that we talk about, because when I was in college, everybody was getting married in their 20s, okay? Like right
Mhm.
out of college, that was the thing. And my daughter told me something the other day that just when I tell you just a little bird sang in my heart, I was like, "Yes." She said, "Oh, mom, I'm not getting married. I don't even want to get married until I get my JD." She said, "I want all the names on my degree to have my name on them." I said,
Well,
Ooh.
all
I know that's
right.
I know that's right,
Ooh.
sister girl, because
Mm.
but the thing is, she's like, "I'm not in a rush," and she's like, "I'm not pressed to have a bunch of kids." She said, "If I have a kid, great, but if not, I still see that there's a beautiful and full life ahead of me." And I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
You see that there are possibilities. One of the greatest forms of generational wealth is exposure. And Kylie, what you just described is
Yes.
exposure. And exposure doesn't have to be expensive.
Mm.
You can go to almost every major metropolitan area has libraries and museums, and they almost all have free days and
Yes.
programmatic focus and that sort of thing. And I'm like, it doesn't take a whole lot. You don't have to go halfway
Yeah.
around the world, and you don't necessarily have to have a passport to provide exposure, but your parents provided exposure for you, and now
Mhm.
it's paid it forward. It says, "You know what? I can push beyond the boundary. I can push beyond what I've seen. I can go into uncharted territory as far as our family is concerned and see what the end is going to be." And so my daughter, the same thing is that she saw her mother make those types of sacrifices so that we could live this kind of life. And when your children are exposed to that, it's like, you know how they say when you see it, you can't unsee it? She
Mm.
can't
Right.
unsee it. Okay. Like she
Mhm.
can't unknow that what is possible. She can't unknow what you can accomplish when you work hard, when you apply yourself. And she also knows what is possible on her own. And for the record, I'm a fan of marriage. I'm a fan of healthy love and healthy partnership. But she knows that she has time. And I
Mhm.
love that for her, that
Yeah.
she can set her own pace and that she is not beholden to any sort of societal pressure to accelerate a timeline that doesn't belong to her, that isn't her own. And I said, that right there is going to pay dividends in her life. And I love
Mm.
that for her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you think about your daughter, what is your deepest desire for her?
You know, my mother, God bless her, she struggled with anxiety. And so the way that anxiety showed up for her was that she was always trying to control the outcome. She was always trying to shape the narrative so that people would kind of like go down a predetermined path, right, of her choosing.
Mm.
And my biggest and highest hope for my daughter, because I've never pushed her down a path. You know how some kids grow up with that, you gotta be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or what
Mhm.
have you. I've never done that. What I have always hoped for her is that she will answer the call of her best and highest gifts in
Yeah.
whatever form that might take. And so if she was a ballet dancer, I'm like, girl, now adjust your financial expectations for a while because that's a long road. Okay, that's a long road. But if that is was the calling on her life, then who am I to stand in the way of that? Like you have to be supportive, and I understand that some people would rail against that, like that's so irresponsible, like in this economy
Mm.
you got to set your kids up for a certain level of financial success. But tell that to the person when these kids started hopping on YouTube playing video games, and next thing you know, it's their video game playing that's paying the rent
That
and the
part.
mortgage and moving mama and daddy to that deluxe apartment in the sky. Okay, it's like you couldn't have told them that. Content
Yeah.
creation,
Yeah.
what the heck is that? Like my pioneering and podcasting and my willingness to continue to be consistent is what has led to brand deals. That was not that
Mm.
linear path would not have led to that. If I had just kept to the classroom, I would never be living this life. And so it's one of those things where it's like, girlfriend, go as far as you would like to go. And she has a boyfriend. She's probably gonna strangle me for saying this. And she's like, Mom, I want you to meet him. I want you to meet him. And so the first day I met this young man, because he goes to her school, she's like, This is so and so. I said, Walk with me, young man. And I walked him around campus and I said, Look here, I sent her here to be the best and highest version of herself. I said, and if the best and highest version of herself takes her to Zimbabwe, she's going to Zimbabwe. If
Mm.
it takes her to Australia, she's going to Australia. What I have not sent her to do is to live in the limitation of where you want her to be. Are we clear on that? And he was like, Yes, ma'am.
Mm.
Ooh,
Well,
when you start with look here,
young man, that part.
young man.
It's like, look, like
Let me be crystal clear here.
you seem like a nice fella. Okay.
And
You
all.
seem like, and all that. But I want to look you in the eye and be crystal clear about what the expectation is. Because at this point, sir, you either going to be an asset or a liability. And being a liability is a non negotiable for
Not
this
an option.
family. It's
Nope.
not an option here. And
Mm.
so, as long as we are clear on the terms, put her there, pal. Nice to meet you. Okay. You know, you have a good summer. May the Lord God bless you real good.
Oh,
So,
Did you tell your
yeah,
daughter that you had that
I
conversation with
surely
him?
did. Let me tell
Yeah.
you something.
Yeah.
I want to, you know, how there are certain conversations we didn't have with our parents, you know.
Mm.
yes.
I'm I just lay it out there. I lay it out
Mhm.
there because the stakes are too high. The
Yep.
Yeah.
stakes are too high. And you know,
Mm.
she'll jab me. She'll be like, Mom, you act like you don't like him. I said, it's not that. I said, I have nothing against this young man
Mhm.
personally. I
Not
said,
personal.
it's
Mm-mm.
not personal. I said, however, though in the natural order of things, I said, when certain things take place, I said, it is the woman who will bear the load. I said, it
Yeah.
is your life that will change. Okay.
Mhm.
It is your life that will pivot and go in a different direction. I said, so I just want you to be conscious of that as you navigate this thing called life. Now,
Mhm.
there's only so much I can do from hundreds of miles away. So every year I drop her off, kiss her on the cheek, and say, okay, make good choices. And what's funny about that is that her freshman year, she's making friends in her little group. And these newly minted freshmen were like, oh, is your mom sad? You know, is she at home missing you? She said, you don't know my mother. My mother probably ain't even in the country right now. Like my mother don't let no grass grow under her
Mhm.
feet. It's like,
Mhm.
and I'm happy about that for myself too, because I am very much a dedicated mother, but I also built a full life. And so when I wanted to take salsa lessons, I took salsa lessons. And when I wanted to take tennis
Mhm.
lessons, I took tennis lessons. And when I have annual outings with my friends, like she's like, all right, Mary Shipments, because she knows I'm out with my line sisters having, you know, shipments and that sort of thing. And it's important to see that. I said, it is important for your children to see you do something other than struggle, to see you do
Mm.
something other than survive, to see you do something other than sitting in the dark, you know, weeping and a wailing and that sort of thing. It's I said, there's more, there's more available.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that my child gets to see her mother live a life full of all that is available.
Yeah. Are there other I could imagine someone listening to this and I've been through my own journey of doing the things where maybe you're the only or the first or but I can imagine someone listening to this and being like, but that could be hard or lonely or how can I get to this place where I feel comfortable doing and trying things that others might not want to try with me or I might have to go on this journey alone. Like is it lonely? You know, how do you nurture that fortitude within you to continue to show up for yourself when you might be the only one? Like what does that look and feel like and how can someone else listening do that if that's not their MO?
Let me tell you, This I love this question because this is a choose your hard conversation.
Mm.
Because it's hard to live beneath your potential. It's hard to want and not try. It's
Mm.
hard to be stuck in neutral. There's a pain in that. There's a longing in that. And if you do it long enough, there's a suffering in that. And there's
Mm.
two kinds of pain. There's pain that hurts you and pain that heals you. And
Mm.
so while it might be hurtful that people cast dispersions, it might be
Mm.
hurtful that people are judging you from a place of their own limitation. It also hurts you to stay where you at. And so choose your hard. Choose and I wouldn't take anything for this journey. I wouldn't take anything for this journey. And you know, one of the here we go. One of the criticisms that I get. So one of on my YouTube channel, I have this video where I said aging alone is not the death sentence that people think it is. I said because there is more than one kind of love in this world. Okay, so romantic love is wonderful, and I love love, and I'm happy for you. If you're happy, and you know it, clap your hands. I'm happy for you. But if you don't have that, I have such a deep bench of loving friendships and connections in my life. And when you look at the research on blue zones and longitudinal studies about like what makes a long and happy life, do you know that romantic partnership is not on the list? What is on the
Ooh,
list is community
Community.
engagement,
community.
intentional friendships. And so I
So
have,
good.
and the thing is that and people will look at me and be like, "You one of those." Here I am. I'm one of those women that's over 40, that's washed up and don't know, but all you have is your accomplishments. And I'm gonna tell you something. I would rather have my accomplishments than somebody giving me the side eye because they haven't accomplished. I would rather,
Mm.
okay, live in the joy of the work that I've done rather than having to limit and measure and mute my joy just to keep somebody else comfortable.
Ooh.
I let me tell you something. And this is hot off the press because I have a meeting with my editor tomorrow, okay?
Mm.
But this year I went to Wimbledon, and which was a gift because you can't just buy tickets to Wimbledon. You got to put your name in the
Wow.
Right.
lottery, and you know it's and the
Yes.
luck of the draw. My name came out of the hat, and I was able to get tickets to Wimbledon. So I'm already like living the dream. Like for me to go, I'm like, this is such a dream. And while I was living that dream, I got a email from my agent that says we have offers because I'm trying to write a book. And we have offers for
Mm.
your book. And
Mm.
I opened up that email and I saw those numbers. What Martin say? Woo, 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 woo. I said,
Yes.
and
Ah.
Ah,
I was overjoyed and so happy. And it occurred to me that I had yet, not to say that he doesn't exist, but I had yet to meet a man that was happy for my joy when he was not succeeding, like that was happy for my success and he was not
mm,
succeeding at the same level, that couldn't just
Mm.
like, I love that for you, you work so hard, you deserve it, let's celebrate you. It was
Mm.
like, okay, can you cook a pot of
Mm.
greens? And I'm like,
mm,
Mm.
so if I have to, so if the label that I have to bear for that is you one of them, I'll be that. I'll be one of them. Okay. I'll be one of them with the money in my pocket. I'll be one of them with the book on the shelf. I'll be that. I will be that.
Mm.
If that is the hard and heavy road, I will take the hard and heavy road of being that and
Mm.
enjoying all the other love that is in my life rather than sit in the pocket of somebody else's insecurities. I can't do it.
Mm.
And so
where's
I would
that
say to that person,
tambourine?
ah, I would say, choose your heart. Choose your
Mm.
heart. And let me tell you, my definition of love. So somebody that loves you, love seeks the highest good of the object that it loves. Love
Mm.
seeks the highest good of the object that it loves. And so anybody that is in your life that is not aligned with your highest good is somebody that you need to reevaluate.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's that
Yes.
simple.
Period.
And and here's the beauty. Whew, here's the beauty of being in this place. I love my life. I really, really do. And not a lot of people can say that, but I
Yeah.
love my life because I love myself.
Mhm.
I I didn't know what it was to be loved at this level. I thought it had to come from somebody. I thought it had to come from somewhere. I thought it had to come from some time
Mm.
other than the one I'm in right now. But when I
Mm.
realized that it was possible to create this kind of love for myself and radiate this kind of joy from within and go across the pond and get invited to places like this and make the kind of
Mm.
money where you have to have an agent just to even get in the door, I didn't even know that
Mm.
it was possible to love yourself at this level, which means that anybody that comes with an intention to occupy space in my orbit, you must meet me at that level of love. And if you cannot, you cannot stay. That's just the bottom line.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. Mm.
Who
You know how I
come
said,
on, Reverend
yes.
Doctor?
I was about to say, I said people might want to know, but I am people because that was for me.
Okay.
Yes.
That was for me. I am people.
Listen.
Goodness.
And the thing
Preaching.
is that um, you know, there's a lot there's a lot wrong in our world right now, but every
Mhm.
now and then I get some of the anger spilling over from the manosphere, what is, what people call this
Mhm.
red pill content and what have you.
Mm.
And I recently had a man post on my under one of my videos. He said a lot of men actually detest how happy women are in their friendships and social lives because we don't have that.
Mm.
And I'm which begs the question, why don't you?
Why?
Because
Why?
who built the patriarchy? It wasn't us.
Mhm. Mm-mm.
So who built the rules of engagement? Who built the rules that said this is what makes a man a man? It wasn't us.
Mm.
And so whose responsibility is it to create those off ramps to a system that does not serve you? And I would say that to anybody. Whose responsibility is it to create the off ramps for the systems that do not serve you?
Mhm.
And so rather than sit in lamentation and rather than sit in detestation for what somebody else has, my question is, what are you doing with what you have? And I'm gonna tell you something, and Kylie can attest to this. When we started podcasting, there were no brand deals. Okay. There was
Mm.
no payment. We
No.
had to pay the podcast. We had to pay for the
Mm.
server and the storage and the equipment. Like we had to pay to
Mm.
show up and serve. Okay. So there was no great incentive package. And for people, even though I don't own the platform, because none of us own these platforms that, we're on, whether it's Facebook
Yep.
or Instagram or whatever the case may be,
Mhm.
I showed up with what I had, meaning what did it take for me to show up on Facebook? What did it cost me out of pocket? Nothing. Nothing. And so my question is, what are you doing with what you have? What are you doing with the free access, with the free will that you have? What choices are you making? Because if you are making choices or you are aligned with individuals that are not enthusiastically aligned with the best and highest version of yourself,
Mm.
it's time to reevaluate that.
Mm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Who
Mm.
I could run around this room right now preaching,
Mhm.
praising, hallelujah. So many, I mean, so many great things. Thank you, Dr. Shanté.
Yeah.
Before we go, though,
All right,
before we go,
before we go.
because I know folks are probably like writing copious notes and all of that and waiting for or looking at the
Mhm.
transcripts and all of that. We always like to include some type of growth work for folks, something that we all can put into action over the next week or two to really integrate some of what we talked about today. So, what is some growth work that we can give to folks that you would like to share with folks to put things into action?
Great question. And this is actually getting a little bit into when my book comes out, y'all gonna have to bring me back. I would appreciate a
Yes,
And I want
comeback.
to hear about it.
100%.
I want to hear about the
Okay.
book
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
So one of the things that I tackle in the book is this idea of premature certainty. And premature certainty
Mhm.
is this: we get so locked into this idea about who we think we are, meaning, like how people have like the zodiac. Well, I'm an Aries, and that's just how we roll.
Mhm.
I'm a Sagittarius, and that's just what it is. Like it's like this fixity of of personhood, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of times, so somebody hearing this might be like, well, that's you, but that ain't me because this is how I roll. Because you can't depend on people. And when I reach
Mm.
out, I'm by
Mhm.
myself. And I wish I could do that, but everybody always coming to me for help, and I'll never have anybody that I can depend on. Uh, And I say, okay, is that who you are? Or is that what you have been doing to
Mm.
survive the
Yes.
circumstances that you're in? Right?
Mm.
Yes.
Because all of us have been through some things. All of us have experienced some deep, dark chapters. And in order to survive that, you develop these survival adaptations. So maybe you become tough exterior. Maybe you become the person where like I don't ask nobody for nothing because I can't depend on nobody for nothing.
Mhm.
Maybe you become the understudy where you take a step back so that somebody else can step up, and you just trying to keep. Maybe you became the peacekeeper because hey, can't we all just get along? Is that who you are? Or is that what you've done to
Mhm.
survive the circumstances that you were in? And so the growth work that I want to encourage people to do is to take a step back. And when you think about the gap between where you are and where you want to be, is what's standing in the middle of that, what you've done to survive. Because what you have to do to survive a situation is very different than what is required to thrive in other parts of your life. And
Wow.
so, if you can go back and look and see how much of this is survival adaptation and how much of this is me, and I want to invite you to become curious about
Mm.
yourself, because so many people have been locked into a way of being for so long that they don't even know themselves. They don't even know
Right.
who they are and what they like, and where they can go and what their potential is, because they've been so locked into a set of circumstances or a situation that is no longer serving them. And so I invite you to be curious, not be certain about yourself, like this is who
Mm.
I am and this is what I'm about. Like, I just want to nudge you out of that. Okay.
Mm.
Because here's the real test. If you had not gone through that thing, is this who you would still be?
So
Right.
good.
That
Yeah.
part.
If life interrupts all of us, but is this who you would still be if your life had not been interrupted? And chances are it's not. That's who
No.
you had to
Yeah.
become because life was interrupted. And so I want to invite you into a new experience about who you can be without those survival adaptations. That's the growth work
Mm.
that allows you to be on this side.
Can I just share a testimony? And I know we
Mm.
need to
Please,
go,
Mm.
please.
but who, what you just said is hitting home for me today. We are recording this on August 5th. 13 years ago today, my mother passed away. In fact, in about an hour from now, if not around this
Mm.
time, was when she passed away
Mm.
13 years ago.
Oh my word.
Mm.
And I have full body goosebumps as I say this.
Mm.
I know for a fact, although that was the darkest, the absolute darkest moment in my life, hands down, full stop. I would not be here talking to both of you today had she not left the earth when she did. Period.
Wow. Wow.
So I thank you
Mm.
because that was the perfect bow to go on this conversation for me today, because that is the testimony of my life and
Mm,
this capital W work that
Mm.
I believe that I get to do in this world. I wouldn't have, I mean, I was going to say, I wouldn't have met either of you in the way that we
Mhm.
did. Although
Mhm.
Dr. Shanté, I know that we had some connections back Broadview Baptist back in the day,
Mhm, mhm.
but not in this way. We would
Yeah.
not be having this conversation. So that is so true.
That is that's a perfect way to end it. When I think about some of the things that, and this isn't applicable across the board, so I want to caveat that because there's always exceptions to the rule. But when I think about some of those difficult chapters, I'm grateful that I can look back and say this did not happen to me. This happened for me. This is what allowed me. This was the
Mhm.
catalyst that allowed me to become this other version of myself. Um,
Mm.
because invention, what do they say? The necessity is the mother of invention. And
Yeah.
so you conjure, you create what you need to get what you need to get out of that situation or to survive or endure or get on the other side of that situation. But when you're on the other side of it, it's kind of like that fight or flight, freeze or fawn. It's like that was cool when we was fighting the bear, but the bear is long gone. And so who do we get to be now? And that's the work, capital W work.
Mhm. That man, full circle, full circle. I am so curious about your book, Dr. Shanté. Can you tell us a little bit about it before we go?
If somebody had asked me a year ago what the book was going to be about, I would have said that it was a book about trauma. But the more that I've written it, and now that I've seen what the end is going to be, the book is an invitation to rediscover yourself because a lot of us know a version of ourselves. And, I have coached a lot of people who, this is probably the most tangible and palpable example. Do you know how many people I have coached that grew up with a certain type of parent? Okay. And that parent may have been young, that parent may have been struggling, that parent may have been scratching and surviving. Okay. Like whatever. And the parent provided food, clothing, and shelter, but were emotionally unavailable or checked out or what have you. And so they
Mhm.
didn't get the nurturance, they didn't get the guidance and things like that. And so that is the parent that they know. Fast forward, my clients become parents themselves. And now their parents are the grandparents. And now all of a sudden they see love and
Mm.
gifts and affection and my clients are like, who
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 that?
is that?
Who
Who
this
is right?
woman?
Because
Who this
like
woman?
because that didn't ride when I was growing up, and if I had would have said
Mhm.
that, or if I would have said I wanted, ice cream, like it would have been a whole different thing. And the difference is like, and or you can see this with age gaps. So if people that have like siblings where it's like a 10, 11,
Mhm.
12, 13-year gap between you, you might have the same
Mhm.
mother, but you ain't had the same upbringing because
Mhm.
where you meet people at a different chapter of life, okay, when they no longer have the responsibilities or the financial commitments and things like that. And so the book is an invitation to explore who can you be when you no longer have the 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 burden of the responsibilities that came. Like a lot of us are, this book is really for the Gen Xers. So like, who is this for? This is for the latchkey kids, the ones that came home
Mhm.
to empty houses, had to make their own grilled
Mhm.
cheese and pork and beans. Okay, okay, grilled cheese
Mm.
sandwiches and pork and beans, had to keep the door locked and do
Mhm.
the homework. A lot of us raised ourselves. A lot of
Mhm.
us raised ourselves, and as a result, we became hyper independent. And a lot of us came to believe that if I don't do it, it won't get done. And a lot of us became resistant to accepting or asking for help and support because we didn't want to have to owe nobody. Like there was a price to be paid for that. And a lot of us were rewarded for being neglected. Like, oh yeah, we didn't have to worry about you. Like, you were straight and that sort of thing. And you think that doesn't
Mm.
take a toll? Of course it does. And so the book is about revisiting that chapter of your life and rediscovering who you can be on the other side of that, because a lot of us the latchkey kid is still running the show. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
let's take a moment of gratitude. Thank you for what you did. You got me through some
Mhm.
really hard times. I appreciate you. But let's get me to a place where I feel safe in
Mm-hmm.
community, where I feel safe asking for what I want, where I feel safe speaking up and saying how I feel about certain things rather than allowing them to fester, where I feel safe saying, I would like to be in community or in connection with you, where we get to a place where we feel safe being our full and whole selves. And so the book guides us from where we were to who we can be if we allow that opportunity for courageous curiosity.
My goodness.
I can't wait. Cannot
Ah,
wait for that.
my goodness. Oh, Dr. Shanté, this has been such a pleasure. I mean, I knew it was going to be good. I told the listeners before we even got started, but this has like been above and beyond anything I could have imagined.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
yeah, so much healing just in your words and what you've shared. So I am just so honored to have you, and thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. This was a blessing. A blessing. Thank you so much. And
And listen,
keep us posted
I will
Yeah.
on the
keep you
book so we can
posted.
bring you back.
Yes.
Yes. There's some passages in the book. I'm like, you ever have one of those books where you like, who's reading this so I can talk about it? Or like you watch a television show, like who watched this? Because I have comments.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm ready for us to have conversation about it. So as soon as I have news, I
Yay.
will absolutely bring it back here and I would be happy to come back and share it with your listeners. Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate you both.
Absolutely.
Thank
This is
you.
beyonding.
This is beyonding.